I always thought I was a wanderer without a future until I discovered my fate is intertwined with the pack leaders. Chapter 1 Pack Murderer. My mother once looked my bloodied body up and down and asked me who I'd managed to murder that day. My father then butted in and congratulated me for it. That's the type of environment I grew up in. I never really had much of a problem with crossing lines. I did it quite often, waist and behind or even on the line, and torment yourself with not knowing what lies ahead of that line when you could just see for yourself. All that it takes is just that one little step over that invisible little boundary that most people limit themselves to. 9 times out of 10, what lies on the other side isn't even that bad. Honestly, most times it's about 10 times less exciting than what I'd even imagined it to be. I continue doing it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why? Maybe it's the feeling that I managed to accomplish something. Maybe it's the feeling that I still didn't accomplish what I had wanted to. Maybe it's just because I'm an idiot. I don't really want to. I've managed to keep myself alive this long by crossing the line. I'm not just going to stop. You can't finish the race if you don't cross that finish line. A B, C, D, E, F, G, D. A gust of cool air blew down the cemented hallway, dispersing itself into my cells. I'm lying. It was now 6 in the evening. This was the time when guards do a shift change. Those who guarded the cells all afternoon are now free to go home with their families. Normally, a person's skin would react to such a breeze sweeping past them with goosebumps or even a shiver, but I would be highly intrigued if my body reacted in such a way. The eerie cold feeling didn't really affect me much anymore. I was about 99.5% used to it. Don't get me wrong, some days I really wouldn't mind hollering for a blanket, but I don't. I know I never receive one unless it's on my deathbed if I'm lucky. IJKL. Groans echoed off of the cell walls from men who were no doubt very weak and very malnourished, not mention annoyed by my choice of entertainment. As far as I knew of, that's all that there were down here besides myself. Female rogues are a difficult find. Most female werewolves are seen as almost a treasure to a pack. Male wolves feel as though it is necessary to protect she-wolves whether it's necessary or not. It's a dominance thing. I know there was a girl in cell to be just down the hall, but I hadn't heard anything from her in about 4 days. There's a good probability that she's dead. It's rogue wolves like her that make us look bad. I don't mean just male rogues, but us very few female rogues who manage to stay alive just fine as well. We really aren't that easy to kill. N.O.P. The thudding of heavy boots was very clear. They pounded their way across the cold grey concrete at the other end of the hall from my cell. A feminine cry sounded throughout the area as the cellar door was loudly yanked open. It was a gut-wrenching cry that was at most standing rigid with their insides in knots. It didn't have much effect on me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. In all honesty, it did nothing to me. The cry continued. Okay, maybe she wasn't dead. Oh well, QRS. My singing continued over top of her high-pitched pleading. Shouts of pain and the obvious sounds of fists and boots making contact with her most likely dying body clashed obnoxiously with the melody of my song. Insults from guards bounced around the cemented area, making it almost impossible for me to hear myself. The girl from to be continued to cry and plead for them to stop. This soon came to an abrupt halt as the sound of choking and sputtering replaced her protest. TUVV. All noise was soon stopped. The only sounds heard were heavy breathing and my soft singing. WX. The boots belonging to be oh-so gentle guards made loud thuds that seemed to grow more and more distant every few seconds, leading me to believe that the men had begun to leave. The sound of something being dragged across the cold concrete floor tangled its way into the mix. The harsh bang of the cellar exit door closing only proved my point that the guards had left with the girl from cell to be in tow. YZ. My lawn. Unpecked nails from months if not years of neglect ran up and down the cool metal bars in front of me. The noise no doubt giving a few wolves around me a headache. I didn't mind the sound. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I actually enjoyed the feeling of the metal just barely brushing past my fingertips and the sound it gave off. It was soothing. Now I know my bases. My teeth clenched together, almost animalistic allies. My fingers wrapped themselves tightly around the tall grey cylinders to the point that my knuckles turned white. I jostled and shook the metal, locking me into my cage quite violently. My arms jerked back and forth, causing loud bangs that the guards here were no doubt very familiar with by now. Someone, get me out of here, please. My tone instantly switching from one of calmness to one of anger and violence. The cell all rattled violently as I pulled at it with an amount of strength that no human man could ever match. Take a breath. Kaye. Hayden from South-13B muttered. I barely even heard him over my assault on the door. Hayden was a friend. I suppose that's what normal people would call them. He is someone with whom I spoke to and occasionally told my inner thoughts to. Yes, Hayden was a friend. Although I had never gotten the chance to see Hayden face to face, I knew his voice, in a place where the only things that you see are cement, metal, and the person in the cell across from you. You tend to learn to recognize people by their voices. It's almost like living life blind. Hayden was the first friend that I had ever read. That itself is only due to being locked up with him just 2 cells down from me for what I think is around a year now. It sounds absolutely ludicrous, but it really wasn't. I never needed friends. I had my mom, dad, and brother. I was perfectly fine. I'll calm down when they feed me something other than that damn chunky vomit soup. We know. Kaye. We know. Hayden unfinished for me, causing some chuckles from unknown prisoners. I growled lowly, feeling my stomach tighten at the thought of food. Oh, what I would do for a peanut, butter and jelly sandwich right now. I had a bit of a tendency to think with my stomach rather than my brain. Most often people use the phrase, follow your heart, but that doesn't really pertain to me, seeing as I don't have much of one. That all flew out the window after my mother and brother went missing, and most likely ended up being murdered. If I followed my heart, there's a good chance I would not be in the cell I am today. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was my stomach that made me want to know how well the cheese sticks in the bar tasted that I ended up being caught at. Then again, I do love cheese sticks, so in a way my heart did lead me here too. At least you're being fed. Dally scoffed. His slightly less muscular body than what it had first been like when he arrived slouched against the back wall of his cell across from mine. I'm being fed because I'm not an idiot like you. I fired back. Dallas ended to get on my nerves, not that he would know that. He arrived to what I like to call hell, shortly after me. I don't really know a set date or time when he arrived, considering every hour looks exactly the same down here. I don't even know what day it is at the moment. I just know that I got here when I was 15, end of story. An idiot who was trying to save both of our asses. He grunted, lazily running a hand through his disheveled, chestnut, brown hair. Well, look at where that's gotten you, I retorted, rolling my eyes. My grip on the metal bars eased up as I took a few steps back. The back of my legs hit my cardboard contraption of a bed, which gets a bit more comfy every night, causing my knees to buckle. My bum hit the surface of the bed as I plopped down on it with a thud. What I did was minor compared to what you've done. Dally shook back at me. I narrowed my light blue eyes at him. His grey ones watched me knowingly as a smirk graced his boyish-like handsome face. Murdering the beta isn't very nice. Kai-Elish. Whoever said I was nice? I smiled innocently. That's why I love you, he said, like the love, sick puppy he really was. The sounds of gagging and groaning were heard from around us. I effortlessly forced a smile etched onto my face to grow. I love you, too, I lied smoothly. My voice was hardly above a whisper as I looked down and smiled at the concrete floors. You both disgust me. Kaiden butted in. He disgusts me, too, Hayen. You are most certainly not alone. You can shut your mouth down there. I snapped, not at all as angry as I seemed. In all honesty, I was thankful that Hayden had chosen to break up such a vomit-inducing moment between Dallas and I. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was fun. Now it's just a chore having to keep up with his antics. True, Dallas was no doubt one of the most gorgeous beings I had ever laid eyes with. He had broad, muscular shoulders that trailed down to some nicely toned arms. His ABS were definite 10 out of 10. And that face, oh my, that face. He was gorgeous to say the least. Dallas definitely had gotten all of the right genes. A mop of slightly curled brow hair sat on top of his handsome face. Dark, grey eyes were framed with long, dark lashes to match his hair. I think his eyes were what drew me to him the most. If they would have been any different, I don't know that I would have been able to keep up the charade for this long. Dallas was 100% in love with me. I mean that in the least cocky way possible. Dallas truly would do anything I wanted him to. If I told him to strangle himself with his own shirt. Then again, Dallas as well as everyone else in the cellar believes I'm hopelessly in love with him too. Some people, even a few of the guards, go as far as calling us mates. I am positive that Dallas is not my mate. I'd strangle myself. Simple as that. Mates in the term of werewolves are a bit different than how humans would use it. They typically use the term mate to describe a friend. Werewolves are a bit more primitive, are they? The term mate to a werewolf is something extremely special. The easiest way to explain it is by saying the term mate is just short for soulmate. That's quite frankly exactly what it is. Someone who is destined to you by fate, by a supernatural bond. There's no way out of it. There is no rejection. Contrary to popular belief, you are stuck with whoever fate has destined you with. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now, I've personally never been against the idea of a mate. My parents were perfectly fine together after my mother had to make a hasty escape from her alpha parents in order to be with my father, who was a rogue. They did not approve of him whatsoever. To be quite literal, they wanted him dead. My parents were mates. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They did everything in their power to ensure to both my brother and I that a mate is one of the best things to ever happen to a wolf. I agree to a certain extent. Mates are nice and all if they fit your ideals. I'm a rogue, and I love it. I was born into this life, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Sure, I never once had a stable home and my parents are dead, but that doesn't mean I dislike the way I live my life. I'm free to do what I want, when I want. And how I want. Well, I will be once I get out of here. Give me a rogue mate, and I'll be perfectly happy. Throw an alpha or even a beta mate into the mix. Then there will be hell. You can't just make a pack murderer into a pack mother. It's not possible. Dallas is a rogue, but I would much rather fall in love with him. Dallas, good looks are obnoxiously accompanied by an ego nearly the size of his massive imagination. I have never once met a man more cocky and gullible in my life. It amazes how he's managed to stay alive this long. The cellar returned to its bittersweet quiet state after my angry outburst. That's normally how it all happened down here. Guards do a shift change. Someone is chosen for punching bag of the day. Dallas makes a comment about how much he loves me. I internally gag. Someone never fails to anger me. I shout, and a deafening silence rolls through the cellar. It wouldn't be an average day if it didn't play out like that. I lay back on my bed, focusing my blue eyes on the concrete ceiling above me as I sang Jingle Bells to myself. This was most definitely not how I saw myself living back when I was 15. Someone should have reminded 15-year-old me that pack borders are a thing, and that entering them is a lot easier than crossing back out of them. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Ice entirely as my eyelids draped over my eyes, blocking my sights. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse, open sleigh. She walked in on them, torturing what's her face from to be. What a poor way to introduce yourself to some pack members. Oh, how I love the idiocracy of new lunars. Will you all shut up? I spat, not really taking a liking to the people who decided it would be a bright idea to talk as I was sleeping. I'm surprised you're not all over this. Kaye, Hayden remarked. My eyes popped open tiredly as my brows knit together in confusion. I slowly sat myself up, rubbing my forehead. All over what? I pretty much yawned out. The Alpha found his Luna. Do you ever pay attention? My ears perked up at the mention of a new Luna. Well, that's new. It's about time, I commented. I was beginning to think he was going to die alone. The Alpha's son. You idiot. Hayden deadpanned. Dallas growled lowly at him for calling me an idiot. Oh, Dallas. You're an idiot. I know what you meant. I snapped, feeling a bit of a snarl grow in my chest. He's like 23 or something. That's a bit late to find your mate. Don't you think? No, not really, Hayden began saying, but was cut off by the sound of the cellar door scraping open. I furrowed my brows together, turning to look at Dallas, who had the same look of confusion as me. There was no way it was time for a shift change, yet my thoughts were cut short as a scent drifted to my nose, making me even more confused. What was that scent? Human. Werewolf. Must be a half-breed. My eyes widened in realization. It must be the new Luna. I always found it so funny how naive new Lunas were. They were always too curious for their own good. I'm guessing by what I had managed to pick up on the conversation between some of the prisoners earlier that little Miss Luna decided to see what the studies were really about after her run-in with Cell to be girl. Classic Luna. Always trying to be the hero. I shrunk back into the wall, trying to make myself seem much more vulnerable than I actually was. I could hear the Luna's quiet footsteps, slowly making their way toward my cell. I bit my tongue, making tears well up in my eyes until one fell. It trailed its way down my cheek, no doubt leaving a path as it did so. I forced a whimper from my lips. Hello? A feminine voice asked out loud. She sounded utterly terrified. If she was smart, she would have run back to her precious alpha mate by now. But seeing how she's a Luna, I doubt the thought even crossed her mind. Bless her stupid soul. Please help me, I whispered as more tears ran down my cheeks. A girl with blonde hair and big green eyes peered into my cell, her eyes growing when her sights landed on me. Oh my God, she mumbled, walking in front of me. Her small, pale hands wrapped themselves around the bars of my cell. Are you okay? I shook my head at her question, allowing another sob to come out. I didn't do it. I swear, I didn't do it. I'm just lost, and I don't know what to do. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. What do they think you did? She spoke softly. They think I killed the beta. I was just crossing the border at the wrong time. I was trying to find help. I lied straight through my teeth. Please help me. I can't take it in here any longer. Her eyes softened as she stuck her hand in her pocket before pulling out a small key. This key opens every door in the pack house, she whispered, as you were afraid someone was going to hear us. Does she not know the cellar's pretty much soundproof? Let's just hope this works. Yep, she is definitely a Luna. She stuck the metal key that glinted ever so slightly in the dim cellar light into the lock. As soon as I heard the click, I took that as my cue to leave. Blondie didn't even have the door open entirely before I bolted out of the cell to her side. She gasped, taking a step back, obviously not expecting me to be as fast as I had been. Not only were werewolves stronger than humans, but we were faster too. Other bonuses being that we can see and smell better, as well as heal from things that would normally kill humans at a very fast rate. I've never once needed a band-aid for a paper cut. You have no idea how great it feels to finally be out of there, I said, cracking my neck with a smile. All traces of sadness had left my body, leaving the Luna shaking out of fear in her spot. You really killed the beta, I countered, interrupting her nervous stuttering. Yeah. I smiled to myself as I ran a dirty hand through my knotted brown hair. Yeah, I did. I highly doubt she expected me to reach out and snap her neck. Her body collapsed in a heap onto the cement floor. Way to not be violent, Kaye, Hayden said. I shrugged, staring down at the Luna's body. She's not dead. She'll heal, I stated, crouching down as I began to undress her. I slipped the white, flowy tank top off of her body and held it up to Dallas. Think this will look good on me? Never mind that. Kaye, get me out of here. Dallas interjected, making me scoff. And what makes you think I'd do that? I pretty much just laughed in his face. I ignored the shocked expression on his face as I began taking off my very old shirt for the clean white tank top. Because we made a promise. You said we'd get out together. You said you loved me. He argued, gripping onto the metal bars holding him in his cell as I slid the light wash jeans off of the Luna's unconscious body. Other people shouted at me to let them out, but I just ignored them. I pulled the jeans on, inwardly groaning at how they fit. Ugh, if I hadn't lost so much weight here, these would fit like a glove. I mumbled, disliking how the jeans were a few sizes too big. They look so nice on Blondie. Kaye, shut up, I snapped at Dallas. His grey eyes looked so lost as they stared hopelessly into my blue ones. I removed my gaze from him as I pulled out a phone and $40 from the back pocket of the jeans. I clicked the phone on, hoping just to snoop a little, but didn't get the chance to when a passcode restriction popped up. Rude, I grunted, tossing the phone into Dallas' cell. It smacked against the concrete floors with a cracking sound. Do me a favor and call the Alpha when you get that unlocked. I feel a little bad that I just knocked out his little mate. Tell him I decided to go west. Yes, I'm feeling west of the border. I smiled victoriously to myself as I slipped on the sandals Blondie was wearing. Dang, her feet are small. Are you being serious right now? Dallas questioned. Well, I think it's only fair that he knows his mate is just laying here practically without clothes. I reasoned, causing a growl to erupt from Dallas. That's not what I meant. I sighed, walking over to Dallas' cell. Dallas, I could stand here and tell you that I will come back for you, but I'll feel bad if I leave knowing that everything I have ever said to you was a lie. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm going to tell you the truth. You were my best bet at getting out of here. I needed to know that if I needed you to get me out, that you would. I guess that does matter anymore. I'm leaving, and I'm most certainly not coming back, I stated before walking away from him. I said, stopping abruptly before turning back to the broken boy behind the metal bars. When Cell-to-be girl comes back, well, if she comes back, tell her I said thanks. Look alive, world. Kaye Eilish is back. Time to cross a few more lines. Chapter to Cologne Boy. Okay. Though someone should have reminded present, Kaye. Once again, that entering a border is much easier than trying to cross out of one, because present, Kaye now has a healing bullet wound in her right shoulder. I can't tell for certain whether or not Border Patrol knew who I was, but they did know what I was. They were most definitely not willing to let a rogue slip through unharmed. Hence the bullet wound. Honestly, the bullet launching itself into my shoulder wasn't that bad if you compare it to the pain I felt having to remove it with a stick afterward. I'm sure the fact that I ended up breaking the stick in half as it was in my shoulder didn't help the pain much either. Go figure. Luckily, I did manage to cross over the border. Not easily, but I made it. Now I have a blister on the back of my heel the size of Mexico that literally has me wanting to hack my foot off. Walking west of a border for nearly straight in sandals to sizes too small does that to a person. The cool, little, white tank top was unfortunately soaked in a deep crimson, so I needed to find other means of clothing. This also resulted in another blood stain, but it wasn't nor as noticeable as the other one. Got to love black clothing. I downed my third tequila shot, relishing in the taste that I had missed so much. The bartender eyed me cautiously. Humans were so worrisome. Sure, tequila did mess me up a bit, but that's after nearly 10 shots. 3 shots weren't going to do much to me, besides maybe make me say a few things that I'll regret. I tend to do that sober, so it isn't much of a big deal for me. I set the small shot glass down on the counter with a smile directed to the bartender before walking away into a crowd of obnoxiously drunken idiots. Bar hopping was a hobby of mine that I had missed. It wasn't the feeling of whiskey burning down my throat or the crowds of like eventually drunk people that I missed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was the line crossing that usually happened some time after. Pushing through the masses of sweaty bodies, I made my way to a bathroom. I breathed in deeply, taking in the aroma of smoke that hit me like a brick wall as soon as I yanked the door open. My smile grew even larger, if that were even possible. I took long strides to face myself in the mirror. In all honesty, I was kind of a mess. I managed to rent a motel in unclaimed territory for a night with the $40 little Luna had in her bucket. I used that time to take about 7 showers. I was smart enough to know that going into pack territory wounded was a stupid idea. It's stupid mistakes like that get rogues killed. Packs are not to be taken lightly. The next day, I went to the nearest dollar store and stole a toothbrush, some razors, deodorant, and gummy worms. Me being the idiot that I am, forgot to steal toothpaste. You can imagine my displeasure of having to brush my teeth with soap from the motel. I still had yet to get any new clothes, so I had to deal with the blood smudge. The jeans were seriously warming up to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. They were like baggy sweatpants, but in blue jean form. Thanks to the multitude of showers, my hair now looked like the light brown that it originally had been before being locked in a cell for who knows how long. The amount of dirt and grime that came off of not only my hair but my body as a whole in the shower was morbidly disgusting. I can honestly say that I have never seen myself so pale after any former color from the years of grime was washed away. My pale skin allowed for the obvious view of a multitude of scars that I had managed to acquire over the years. The most evident flaw being the scar that made itself known across my forehead. I was not a fan of it. Screw you, I muttered lightly, brushing my fingertips over the unwanted mark. The memory of it was not a happy one. My older brother had given it to me after he threw me down a flight stairs one day. I think we were in Ontario, Canada, but I truly don't remember. We've been in so many places that I can't even name off half of them. All that I recall from the incident was Mom having a full-blown panic attack as she took in my bleeding head. Caden looked as if he had just seen a ghost, obviously upset with himself by what he had done. And Dad just told me to get up and walk it off. Again, that was the type of environment I grew up in. I let out a sigh as I met my own blue eyes through the reflection of the mirror before letting them trail down to a certain area on my shoulder. I hastily pulled down the shirt collar expecting to see the bullet wound, but was only met with a small, circular scar. I smirked, knowing that the one thing holding me back from entering pack territory was now healed. My day just gets better and better. I left the bar without pain. Yeah, that bartender really should have seen that coming. Mary had a little lamb. Little lamb. Little lamb. I sang gingerly, walking down the sidewalk. I shoved my hands into my pockets, feeling the cool chill of the night nipping at my skin. It didn't bother me. It was just a been wanted. Oh, hello, border. So nice to finally meet you. I greeted to the imaginary boundary line as I crossed over into someone's territory. Scents of pack wolves wafted to my nose, bringing a smile to my lips. Oh, how I've missed this. Whoever's land this was obviously did not want me or any trespass for that matter here. The border was heavily patrolled by both men, women, and wolves. There was absolutely, positively no way in hell that I was getting any further than 10 steps past the border without being chased and maybe even killed. I wasn't an idiot. I was not going to do anything reckless for at least another week. I hate pack wolves, I muttered to myself, sluggishly dragging my feet across the sidewalk of a back alley in unclaimed territory. I did not want to come back, but it wasn't smart of me to just jump into pack wolf territory. I couldn't just ignore the fact that the most strenuous thing I had done in the past year or whatever was trying to do a cartwheel in my cell, which did not work out well. My body was really not ready to play tag with some pack wolves. I hate alphas. I hate people in general. I grumbled. I continued rambling to myself about my hatred for anything that inhaled oxygen. In a perfect world, I would already be over the border. I would be plotting the steps I would have to take in order to murder the pack's beta. Packs normally grow to be pretty useless without their beta. It's a specialty of mine. It's also the reason I ended up in cell for quite some time. Mother Fru, I said, going to curse pack wolves once again, but froze in my tracks when a certain scent hit me that had a sick smile spreading across my face. Well, wasn't expecting pack wolves to be out of their territory. I thought aloud. If I weren't walking alone in a dark alley, someone would probably deem me as insane. Things just got a little more interesting. If someone would have told me I would end up in the same bar twice in one night, I would have straight up called them a liar. Unfortunately, for the first time ever, I would have been wrong. I'm really starting to feel an emotional connection with the hilltop. It's such a cute little bar to murder someone in. Lucky for me, the bartender from earlier was not present. That lifted a weight off of my shoulders, knowing I wouldn't have to pay my bill from earlier. It's not like I really could if I wanted to. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Seeing as I have no money, I blame that on little Luna for only carrying $40. The bar smelled abnormally pleasant. I don't mean this in a way that the bar's aroma did not smelly. Alcohol-ridden losers because, well. But if you push all of that to the side, then it was obvious that someone had on some very nice cologne. It was a smell that I could literally see myself bathing in. Let me just say, this mouth-watering, highly intoxicating, stomach-dropping, orgasm-inducing scent was most certainly not here before. But oh boy, was I happy that it was now. My eyes scoured the area trying to pinpoint the person wearing the cologne that had my insides twisting in knots. This person was definitely trying to get laid tonight, and in my own opinion it was probably going to work. The key to any person's heart is through their stomach, and this man smelled damn edible. Well, if it isn't a strange sight to see a rogue so close to the border. A deep, masculine voice said from behind me. My thoughts of the scent were immediately pushed to the far corners of my mind as an oh my gosh, I'm just a little girl who's lost and doesn't know where to go. Aid washed over my devious facial features. I turned abruptly, putting my hand over my chest. My eyes grew, and my jaw dropped as it normally did when I was put into situations like this. Oh, I was just lost. And please don't kill me, I stammered, purposely taking a step back away from the very large male in front of me. This man may not have been the person who smelled so divine, but that did not lessen the fact that the man in front of me was quite the looker. He was darn sure easy on the eyes. In a strange way, he almost reminded me of Dallas. The thought of the boy who was so madly in love with me almost made me want to frown. I didn't. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Someday I'd go back and get Dallas when I find him less of a prick. For now, the cell will do him just fine. The height as well as build of the man in front of me reminded me greatly of Dallas. Dallas wasn't a small guy. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was an alpha's son, so what else is there to expect? He turned rogue after being denied the position of alpha for reasons that I was not aware of. I didn't really care enough to know. Back to the matter at hand. Dallas was no average-sized male, and either was the dude in front of me, with his chestnut, brown hair that was just a shade or two lighter than Alice. I'd say almost a dirty blonde and a perfectly crafted jawline. The one thing really separating the two were the differences in eye color, whereas Dallas had steely, grey eyes. The man towering over my 5 for self had dull yet inviting green ones. Everything about this handsome devil just screamed, I run this shit show. We aren't exactly on claimed territory, so I'd be in a bit of trouble by killing you, Mr. Tall, blonde, and handsome, mused as he folded his very muscular arms over his very muscular chest. Oh, lordy, you're not going to turn me into your alpha or beta. I pressed, searching for one answer. A light chuckle erupted from him, creating this weird feeling in my chest that I really wasn't a fan of. Therefore my heart feels the need to make an appearance. Sweetheart, Blondie smirked, making those weird little feelings in my chesties. Did he really have to be that much like Dallas? I am the beta. Dingo. I shifted my gaze from him to the floor. I stared down at my feet, thinking just how I should go about this. Well, I said innocently, peeking up at him through my lashes. If there's any way I could ever repay you for this, just let me know. One drink led to another, which led to a motel bedroom, which then led to me almost sleeping with the beta whose name I never even had the chance of getting. Oh my God. I moaned, breath ILY's. Blondie trailed his lips down my neck. His tall frame had me pressed against the far wall of the room just opposite of the door. My thoughts were a bit muffled due to the fact that I truly haven't drunk as much as I just did in quite some time. But I was in this situation so often that everything I was doing was sort of just instinct. Everything that I was doing with this beta was not at all any different from what I had done a year or so ago. Blondie's large hands gripped onto my sides as his mouth sucked away at a certain part of my neck. I'll be surprised if I don't have a hickey tomorrow. I leaned my head back, letting out a moan as his mouth did its thing. This was obviously not his first rodeo. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His hands inched their way under my shirt. They roamed over my stomach, which I admit was much flatter than I would have liked it to be. Blondie didn't seem to mind it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He had my shirt over my head in a matter of seconds before his mouth was latched back onto my neck. I wrapped my arms around his neck before jumping up to wrap my legs around his waist. His helpmate just under my thighs. He squeezed them lightly, making another moan slip its way past my lips. The feeling of the wool on my back soon left as another surface greeted me. This surface was much softer a bed. You're killing me, I moaned, tugging on his shirt, which irritably still stood between us. He got the hint. Before I really had time to even acknowledge the sculpted muscle-bound, his well-defined body, his shirt was on the floor, and his lips found mine. The kiss was in no way gentle. Lust burned at the tips of our tongues, each of them fighting for dominance over one another. Blondie's hands were just beginning to fiddle with the button of my jeans when the door was thrown open. I would not be surprised if the impact of it hitting the wall left a giant indent. Both of our attentions shot to the door with a now very broken doorknob. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That wasn't really what I was doing. Oh no. My mind was focused on a very real problem, that I was laying on a bed with a man I had only met maybe 3 hours ago, while simultaneously staring into the dark eyes of the heavenly, smelling cologne dude from the bar in the doorway. Let me just say, his cologne scent did not dwindle one bit. Heavenly, smelling cologne dude had me weak at the knees just by staring at him. Bless the fact that I was laying on a bed, or I probably would have crumpled to the floor in a heap of lusty thoughts. This man, this sweet, smelling, dark blue-eyed, coal-black hair, having, moan-inducing, person of a man had my heart rate speeding up to about 10 times the average or safe speed. I was positive that I was 2 seconds away from having convulsions. So, what did I do? Icebot said. I hadn't ever been put in this certain situation, so it just felt like the right thing to do to snap Blondie's neck. Looking back at it, I would never. But in the moment it just seemed right. It was poor planning on my part. Karma instantly decided to make an appearance. Heavenly cologne, smelling, dude decided that it was probably best to snap my neck. To talk about tragic. Our plans were so similar. Yet I couldn't help but feel that breaking my neck was probably the smarter idea in the whole situation. What I did was just a tad unnecessary. Knocking me unconscious was most likely the smartest decision made by anyone all day. I was trying to seduce and then murder someone after all. Chapter 3, Shower of Jesus. If there's one thing that sucks about being a werewolf, it's the healing loophole. By this I mean that just because our wounds heal alarming speeds and we have the ability to heal from the most outrageous of injuries, we still feel all of the pain. Honestly, I think the entire healing process just adds more pain. Sure, had I not been able to heal from my snapped neck, I would be dead, but it feels like there's a knife in the side of my neck. So am I really winning? Another thing that sucks is that our heightened senses never fail to pick up on the littlest things. For example, the orgasm-inducing cologne Mount scent was literally cocooning me in this exact moment, and I knew it immediately. Maybe I wasn't alive. Maybe this is the scent of heaven, but I'm in pain. So maybe hell. Oh mana. I groaned, trying to raise my top half from the bed. This ultimately resulted in a sharp pain searing through my neck, leading into my torso and head. I gritted my teeth as I pushed myself up again. Pain resonated throughout my body as a strangled cry left my lips. I forced my body to sit upright before making the brave decision of cracking my neck. The loudest crack I'm positive that I had ever had rang out. For a second, I genuinely believed that I managed to break my neck. Fortunately, I did not. The bones in my neck and parts of my spine realigned themselves into their correct positions, making the massive pain in my neck cut to about a fourth of what it had been. Holy man, I mumbled, allowing my eyes to scan the very unfamiliar room around me. This was not supposed to happen. I wasn't an idiot, contrary of what it may seem. Things just normally don't go the way I want them to. So in a way I'm not the one wrong. The universe is. If the universe would just work with me once in a while, I wouldn't have all of these minor problems. I did know that cologne dude was my mate. That was a given. I came to that conclusion when he barged into my almost one-night stand and attempted murder. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I still can't wrap my head around why snapping my neck was so easy for him. And his mate. What a prick. I swung my legs off of the very large, king-sized bed that I am 100% sure was not the bed from the motel. I used my arms to push myself up from the bed into a standing position, which I immediately regretted. A muscle in my neck decided to be a spasm. It tensed up, causing pain to skyrocket down my spine. My legs turned to jello, and my body fell to the ground in a heap with a squeak shooting out from my mouth. I was laying face down on the floor behind the bed. I heard the opening of a door from the other side, causing me to turn my head with a wince. The door shut, followed by the sounds of cautious footsteps. From my angle, I could see a pair of dark, brown boots, which I assumed were leather, making their way around the bed over to me. The boots rounded the bed until I was no longer staring at them from under the bed, but instead they were right in front of me. Am I in hell? I asked, staring at the scuffed-up boots that had stopped at just inches in front of my face. My neck was obviously not ready to murder anyone at the moment. I think if I even tried standing up, I would just collapse again. A slight chuckle sounded at my question, catching my attention. NRT all. Blonde. And handsome. I questioned, slowly craning my neck upward against its many protests to look at the owner of the boots. I was not at all surprised to know that I was indeed correct. His fluorescent green eyes connected with my blue ones, with a smirk playing on his lips. His dirty blonde hair was similar to what it had been like, what I'm assuming was last night. But who knows? I could be dead wrong. His hair was just a bit messier now. Not saying it wasn't messy at one point of the night yesterday, but it wasn't for a good portion of the time. Enthusiasm. That's a really go booster and all. But Matteo already wants to kill me. Quite frankly, I really don't want to die yet, and certainly not by the hands of him. So could you maybe just I don't know, chill? Blondie replied playfully. I could hear the seriousness flooding ever so slightly into his voice. He seemed somewhat frightened by this Matteo dude. It didn't take a genius to know that this Matteo dude must be Cologne, boy from the bar. My mate. And he must be a bit of a menacing character if he gets this sort of reaction from others. Good. I really don't have time for a mate who is scared of the concept of murder, because when we get out of here, there will be plenty of it. Well, sorry I never caught your name. I snapped, making Blondie, who happened to be literally towering over me, roll his eyes. I'm almost positive that I told you my name is Jack last night. Blondie. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I scoffed, rolling my eyes before turning back to stare at the floor. My forehead was smack against the hardwood as my nose squished against it, no doubt making me look like a pig. Probably was too drunk to notice. That was sort of like half of the truth. I was drunk at some point last night, but most likely not when he told me. It's become a bit of a defense mechanism to not know the names of the people, mainly men, who I chose to target and later murder. I probably just completely ignored him when he told me. It's just easier looking back and saying, I murdered some blonde giant with nice hair, rather than I killed a boy named Jack who no doubt had a mother who wanted him to be named that because it was the name of his grandfather, or whatever. It makes sense in my mind. Without an aim, I feel less attached. Okay, Kayla. He scoffed, making my eyebrows furrow. I glared at the floor, not feeling ready to look at him again. I wasn't willing to let this guy know how jacked up my neck truly was, even though it was kind of a given. Wait. Why the heck does his neck seem all fine and dandy? And I'm here like dying. First of all, numbnut. It's Kaye, I said, really making sure to emphasize my name for him. Kaye. Got it. Second of all, I groaned, forcing myself to look at a smug-looking Jack. If I broke your neck, why aren't you in any pain? Jack chuckled at me, crossing his arms over his bulky chest. Koya, he emphasized. I'm pretty much high on ibuprofen right now. You could cut my leg off, and I'm sure I wouldn't feel it. That could be arranged. Wow, what happened to the scared little girl from last night? The one who was so terrified of being caught near our border? Jack asked, making me shrug. You must have me confused for someone else. Perhaps that Kayla girl. Right. Jack drug out, rolling his green eyes as I turned back to face the floor. Well, you can continue making out with the floor. I'm going to go take about 6 more ibuprofen and hopefully pass out on the couch, he stated before exiting the room. Well, the floor is a much better kisser than you were, I shouted just as he shut the door. Although it was shut, I could still hear his loud laugh that no doubt was echoing around the house. The thought instantly had me tense. I already knew I was in a pack house. It's a pack wolf town. From what I know, pack houses basically just house wolves ranging from ages 16 to like 30. By the time werewolves are 30, they usually find their mates and move into their own homes. The youngest wolves choose to stay at the pack house to stay closer to the alpha, and to gamma, as well as participate in pack responsibilities like border patrol. Oftentimes, other pack members choose to visit the pack house to see their friends and family who happen to be living in the house. It didn't really add up in my mind. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I snapped the beta's neck in a cozy room that reeks of my mate. Yes, because that makes perfect sense. Shouldn't they? Oh, I don't know, lock me up in a cellar, so I don't try murdering anyone. This pack thinks so little of me. Oh, I cried quietly to myself as I slowly pushed myself off of the ground. I only got to the point where I was kneeling before I needed to take a break, thanks to my neck tensing up again. Pushing myself up the rest of the way, I made my way to the door. I turned the knob, expecting the door to just open when it came to a complete stop. What the heck? I asked, yanking back and forth on the doorknob. I may have the education of a 5th grader, but it doesn't take a genius to know doors aren't supposed to lock from the outside. The door rattled, but it didn't do anything more. My ears picked up on a slight tapping noise on the other side of it near the knob. I put my ear to the door and pulled it again, hearing something hit against the door. What is that? I grumbled. After about a minute or two more of yanking wildly on the door, I just gave up and walked around the room. Kicked the bed, angrily ranted to myself, and even went through my mate's clothing drawers. There wasn't anything exciting in there. Honestly, I was hoping my mate was a psychopath and had a gun stored in his sock drawer or something. Unfortunately, he wasn't. Oh, I drug out, peeking my head into the doorway of what I now know as a bathroom. Fancy. Not only did my heavenly smelling mate have a connected bathroom, but it was honestly huge. The shower itself was unlike anything I've ever seen. This is the type of shower Jesus uses. I gaped. I turned to face myself in a mirror. I squinted my eyes silently judging myself, before looking down at my shirt. Well, you aren't my shirt. I acknowledged, tugging at the large maroon shirt. I brought it up to my nose, hoping to recognize the scent. My freaking shirt almost knocked me out. The knee-weakening scent of my mate made my heart flutter, and my mind go blank. My legs felt like jello along with my brain. I felt like a puddle of goo. EUYH. I flinched, not caring that the noise I just made no doubt made me sound like I had lost a few too many brain cells. That was like snorting straight through rock to powder. My eyes were watering. That was obvious as I was staring at myself in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed due to my slight spaz, and my hair was a bit of a mess. The long brown locks stumbled down my shoulders to my waist. I wasn't a big fan of my tangled mess that I call hair. Before I was so rudely locked away in a cell for a year or so. My hair was just a bit past my shoulders. I preferred my hair kind of short. I looked down at my hand, making a fist. I held it up, seriously contemplating my actions. Is it worth it? I asked myself out loud, no. Realizing that punching the mirror would just cause a mess that I did not want to deal with. I wasn't a big fan of blood. I smiled as my eyes landed on a little metal toothbrush holder. I hummed the melody of Somewhere Over the Rainbow as I snatched the toothpaste and brush from the holder. Growing up, we never had much. The money we had came from Mom and Dad's victims, and when Caden and I were old enough, we made our own share of money. Some days, our victims were just wolves that happened to be alone at the wrong time. Other times, our victims were wolves that we were hired to kill. It happened more times than you would think. Due to this, I learned to suck it up and take things with a grateful smile. I could taste my own breath. I was going to brush my teeth using my own toothbrush or not. I brushed my teeth harshly to the point where I'm sure some of my tooth was being brushed off. I continued brushing as I picked up the little metal-looking holder. I took a step back, tossing the toothbrush holder up about an inch back into my palm. Then, I threw it at the mirror. I barely bat an eyelid as the glass came crashing down. I bet my left it that most of the house heard the shattering. I spit the toothpaste into the sink filled with glass shards before rinsing out the brush. I gently placed the toothbrush down on the sink. I crouched down, picking up a large piece of glass. The glass glinted from the light in the bathroom as I inspected it. Anything's a weapon if it's used properly. I kept the glass in my hand, internally groaning when I managed to cut myself on not only my hand but my foot. A hiss left my lips as I hobbled away from the glass and clopped onto my butt. I set my weapon on the floor before inspecting my foot. 1 glass. 2 glass. Red glass. Add another piece of red glass. I grunted in annoyance, taking out the 3 pieces of glass lodged in my foot. I just managed to take out the last piece when the sound of the door opening sounded. My ears perked up as my hand reached out to snatch my weapon of choice. My foot still hurt a bit, but I pushed that feeling away as I quickly stood up. My nose was completely flooded by the scent of my own blood, and my mate sent thanks to being in his bathroom. In his room, wearing his shirt. I crept my way out of the bathroom, gripping the glass. This was a situation that was not entirely foreign to me. There had been instances where men had caught on to what I planned on doing. I don't mean to brag, but I'm pretty good at what I do. That includes being sneaky. A very large man with very dark hair stood facing opposite of me. He looked to be searching for something as he was digging through a closet. I was behind him in an instant. I was not expecting for this dude to be so quick in his actions. As if he had known I was coming. He had quite literally thrown me across the room. I landed on the bed. Thankfully, he was in front of me in a flash. I recovered quickly, just as his hands grasped my shoulders, pushing me down to the bed. I forced my little glass shard to his neck. I was 2 seconds away from just ending the dude right there. But his beautiful, dark blue eyes stopped me. A heat sensation shot through my body. My mind felt numb, and I wasn't quite sure if I could move my toes. I wasn't even sure I could move my legs. I was frozen, staring at the blue eyes that put the ocean to shame. Hell, they put all things to shame, blue or not. My thoughts were put to rest when the door flung open, causing not only my attention, but my mate, Mateo's, attention to snap to the person interrupting our not so romantic moment. "Hey, Kaye. I figured you'd want," Jack began saying as he strolled into my room carelessly with a bottle of pills in his hand. He stopped abruptly, taking in the scene in front of him. His green eyes grew, and his mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "I think I'll just come back later. Wait, no. No, I will not. I will not come back later. I'll just, here." Jack stuttered, throwing the bottle of pills to the other side of the room. He was obviously freaking out a bit by seeing Mateo here. God, he's the beta. What's he so worried about? Mateo and I both turned to face each other. I can only assume that the look of "what the hell" was the same on my face just as it was on his. Holy crap, my mate's gorgeous. His jawline. I could think of so many things I could be doing with his body in that shower fit for Jesus. We both continued just staring at each other. Neither of us really dared to look away. He was just as entranced on me as I was him. It was then that I realized I still had a glass shard pressed to his throat. Deciding that killing my mate was not on my top 10 list of things to do today, I dropped my hand down before releasing the glass onto the bed. Sorry for trying to slit your throat. I really was not anticipating on those words being the first things I said to my mate. I highly doubt he anticipated hearing them. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What can I say? I'm a true romantic. Chapter for word format. I don't really care who you are, Amanda Bynes. Madonna. The Pope. It doesn't matter. A person will never be prepared for the day they meet their soulmate. You can write a script and rehearse your every line, but nothing will ever go the way you want it to because your body just starts taking over the moment your eyes meet. Your mind goes into pretty much complete mush, and your body just goes into autopilot. The only words wanting to leave your lips being, "Bang me right now." I really wish I was lying. I was completely and utterly lost, just staring in the dark blue depths of his eyes. I don't really think he was registering what I had just said. I don't blame him. I did just admit to trying to murder him. In all fairness though, he did snap my neck, so he kind of deserved it. "So your name's Kaye?" He breathed, his minty breath fanning my face, making me shudder. Normally, I was not one to have someone speaking so closely to my face. I would have thrown him across the room. Well, I would have attempted to, but in the moment I wasn't minding it. I actually really liked it. "And you're Mateo?" I was extremely grateful that those 3 words managed to slip out rather than take me now. I'm not against side of myself at all. I would just rather allow him to meet that side of me once we were out of here living rogue. Mateo nodded. "Sorry I snapped your neck, by the way. I would have done the same to you if you hadn't." Sentences were just spewing out of my mouth. It was complete and utter word vomit. I was generally used to my bluntness. Speaking my mind without worry was one thing I was very good at. Some days it was a curse, and other days it was a blessing. I just had to make the most of the word vomit that spewed from my lips that never seemed to stop moving. We just stayed in our position for another moment before I assumed the words I had spoken from earlier clicked into Mateo's head, his dark eyes wide, and before clearing his throat and stepping back. Muscular arms fell down to his sides as he stood a good few feet away from me. I propped myself up using my elbows to stare directly at him. I understood entirely why Jack must feel threatened by my mate. First of all, Mateo was the most stunning thing I had ever laid eyes on. From his dark tousled hair, which had my fingers aching feeling the need to run through it, to his brawny, Herculean body, what guy wouldn't be threatened? I'm surprised girls fall for anyone other than Mateo. He sets the bar pretty high. Not to mention, Mateo's entire aura just screamed, "I can and will kill you." I don't base this entirely off of the fact that he stands at a height of at least 6'. I wouldn't be surprised if someone told me he was like 6'4". Honestly, or that he could squish my entire body just between his thumb and forefinger. No, I say this due to the fact that Mateo looks like an ape on steroids who just found out that his parents were brutally murdered. He still managed to look absolutely gorgeous. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're a rogue, he stated, pretty much examining me as if I were going to turn into an alien with 5 heads. I quirked an eyebrow as I pushed myself to sit up on my butt. Last time I checked. His expression seemed almost torn or maybe even confused. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Which already was sharp enough to cut someone when slack. Was clenched. Was he mad? Okay, I'm not that bad. And you thought it was smart to come so close to the edge of territory alone. What if someone would have killed you? That's risky. Kaye. Matteo pretty much growled out in anger. Frustration was spilling into his tone. As well. My brows furrowed at the mention of the Sea-Edder's pack. No. That wasn't possible. I did not cross or attempt to cross into Sea-Edder's territory. As a rogue, you do learn to live by some rules. One of those rules being that you don't just cross over into the few packs, territories that can slaughter you in seconds. I made this mistake once before. I didn't take the warnings of going into Vindicta territory as seriously as I should have. A person would think I would learn by now, seeing as I just managed to escape being imprisoned by them for so long. I guess not. The Sea-Edder's pack was one of those few packs that my father told my brother and I repeatedly not to step foot in unless we wanted to die. But here I am just chilling in their pack house. What's next? The Socia's pack wants to invite me over for tea. You have to get me out of here. I snapped, scurrying up from the bed in a panic. A look of confusion crossed over Matteo's face. What? Why, because Alphen Ayres is gonna kill me. I tried to get to the door in hopes of a sad attempt at running out of the pack house until Matteo's large hand wrapped itself around my arm. My body halted and jerked backward. Why would I kill you? I snapped my head to the side to face a puzzled, looking Matteo. I'm almost positive that my facial expression looked exactly like his. You're the what? I asked, stumbling over my words. I knew exactly what he said. I knew what he meant when he asked, why would I kill you? It was because I referred to the Alpha. But that couldn't be right. Alphen Ayres' son wasn't supposed to take over for like another year. Salvatore Ayres is the Alpha, I stated adamantly. And his son isn't supposed to take over for like a year. Tio, his name is Tio. Tio as in Matteo with an A. Matteo so kindly corrected. I shook my head. You hear how? I stuttered, not being able to put my thoughts into actual sentences. I ran my hands frustrated through my long, brown hair, pulling on it halfway. How is this even possible? Karma. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm just going to go with both. It's ironic karma, but it didn't make sense. Sure. I grew up thinking the successor of the Sea-Edder's pack was a boy named Tio. But that boy was still Matteo. He was still the same age. So why was he Alpha now? All at once everything sort of just clicked. A switch suddenly was turned on. And a little light bulb sprang to life in my mind. What day is it? I shot out, turning a strange look from Matteo. Thursday. I groaned, feeling extremely impatient with my mate at the moment. I rolled my hands, gesturing for him to go on. And I pressed. Of November. Jesus Christ. What year is it? I snapped. It was obvious that my mate wasn't a big fan of me shouting at him. But I knew he decided to push away his distaste due to the fact that his mate was currently having a conniption for an unknown reason. 2017. I froze immediately. I knew in that moment that all signs of color had drained from my face. No, he was lying. I whispered unbelievably, bringing my hands up to my mouth. I rolled my lip lightly between my thumb and forefinger as I repeated myself. It had been for years. Not 1, not 2, but 4. The whole year snatched away from me. I never lived the life of a 16, 17. To my agent extraordinaire, wildest, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And barely a 19-year-old. I lived those years behind bars. I would be 20 in nearly 2 months. I lost for years of my life that I didn't even know were passing right by me. Matteo seemed absolutely lost as I continued mumbling to myself. I couldn't find anything rational to say other than for years. I was stupid enough to get locked up for years. His hand stayed latched onto my upper arm, but his grip wasn't as strong as it had been at first. He loosened up a bit. "You're the alpha now." I stated what he had already told me. I almost felt bad. My mate looked at me like he thought I was missing half of my brain. I probably was. That's what I said. "And you have been for 2 years. He countered, making my brows furrow. Something wasn't right. Everyone knew Salvatore Nese's son was to take over in 2015 2 years ago. It's not really much of a secret what happens in the higher-ranking packs. Most packs as well as rogues stay updated on what is happening in them. It's almost like safety precautions." As if sensing my confusion, Matteo quickly answered my unasked question. "My father died of cancer when I was 17. I frowned almost instantly. It really was not every day that your werewolf soulmate tells you that his father died of cancer, especially because werewolves do not get illnesses like cancer. I thought werewolves didn't get cancer. They don't," he stated simply. I could tell just by the look in his eyes that he did not want to talk about it. I for one was not going to anger him by saying anything more. This was one of those moments when I need to shut up. I had about 48 questions for him just pertaining to the death of his father, but they could wait for a more appropriate time. His hand holding my arm dropped to his side. A stoic expression crossed over his face as I'm guessing the memory floated back into his thoughts. "Well, why didn't your mom take over? Alpha children come of age to take over at 18. If an alpha dies before his heir is of age, his mate the Luna takes over. That's how it's always been. It didn't make sense that Matteo would take over underage. She's dead. Died of a drug overdose when I was 7. Well, there it is." Disgust practically dripped out of his mouth as he spoke of his mother. It made me highly uncomfortable. "Oh," I drug out. "What do you even say to that?" "Oh, that makes sense considering no one ever hears about a Luna in the Sierra's pack." "I don't see that being effective. That could get me killed. So, should I try to top your shitty childhood story or just keep my mouth shut?" As soon as I said it, I knew I shouldn't have. But it was just word vomit. It just spewed out of me. "What?" he snapped, sounding a bit stressed. Maybe even annoyed. I had a tendency of doing that to people. "Never mind," I mumbled, cracking my fingers anxiously. I really didn't like being in this pack house or being this close to an alpha mate or not. Being in these situations really weren't my strong suit due to me not ever really being in one of them. "Can I make eggs?" More word vomit. "No, you can stay in here. I'll get you something," Matteo stated deeply. His features displayed clear signs of anger. I wasn't sure if it was because me or from the fact that I just brought up his dead parents. Either way, they were both no doubt because of me. The angry look sure did look nice on him. All of his features seemed much more prominent when he looked this way. Dark brows were pulled together above his dark eyes that made me want to fall over and die. His pale, pink lips that looked extremely kissable in the moment were pulled into a tight line. I wouldn't doubt it if someone told me his teeth were clenched angrily because the way his jawline stuck out strongly told me the same story. Matteo was absolutely gorgeous. Why would the fates be so cruel as to make me to an alpha wolf? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I do bless them for mating me to someone so godly as Matteo. But why him? Asking an alpha to abandon their pack isn't like asking an average delta. Some alphas do leave their packs for certain reasons, much like Dias, but I haven't ever heard of one leaving for their mate. I was a stubborn little thing. I also did not like being in one place for very long, especially around pack walls. My body was screaming for me to just jump Matteo, but my mind was like, throw him in a bag and run away together. Whatever I ended up doing, I really did not want to leave Matteo, but I couldn't help but hate the alpha part of him. It was just a matter of leaving rogue life or leaving Sierra's back territory. That thought scared the hell out of me. Matteo turned on his heel and exited the room, leaving me there alone. I was so lost in my own thoughts that I barely heard the sound of something being locked from the other side of the door. Did he just use a padlock to keep me in here? I stormed over to the door once I was again in my right mind. I twisted the doorknob and yanked the door only to be met with the familiar banging of whatever was on the other side. I snarled angrily as I continued pushing and pulling on the large door with force that should have been enough to rip it off of its hinges. "Mateo, get me out of here," I shouted as I continued my assault on the door. "I want to leave. No one came to let me out of the room, so I didn't stop my destruction. He didn't even know what kind of eggs I wanted."